Welcome to Run to the Hills, episode 9. So it's so good to be back with you, and I hope you will enjoy this episode. And just to say right at the beginning that this one is a little bit different. It's on mental health, and there are some of the interviews are a bit very honest and personal. And we just wanted to let you know that there are some content in that, particularly with chatting with Gayle, that you may find a little bit upsetting, but we felt it was really worthwhile to do. Anyway, we just thought we'd let you know that that's coming up in this episode. So Eddie, how are you this morning? And how is life in France?
Oh, it's great. Thank you. Finally, you're very kind because we're actually recording this an hour earlier because the sun is shining. We have had weeks and weeks of rain and snow. And I looked at the forecast and I was like, oh, I'm going to sneakily ask John if we can record a bit earlier so that I can go for a run in the sunshine without many layers. So yeah, all good. I mean, the news isn't great, is it? It looks very unlikely that I'll be able to come over now for the South Downs Way 100. And I was coping with it because I had another race, the Saint-Élion, which is not far from here, in December lined up. And last night they cancelled that too. Oh. It's all totally understandable. And as my husband says, it would be nice to be able to go to a race. It's not a necessity to go to a race right now, Eddie. Because, of course, us runners, we blow everything out of total proportion, don't we? And running is the be-all and end-all. So I'm going to carry on. I've got 2 more weeks of this training block, and it's going so well. And this week, I have been, if I do get over, John, there's no competition, really. I was been flying this week, and I ran up a Strava segment yesterday 4 minutes faster than I've ever run it before over it's a sort of 15-minute Strava segment. 4 minutes. But anyway, it's been a great block. Think of the positives. So all good. What about you? You've been at a wedding.
Yeah, well, just like you did that race, that Saint-Élion, I've done that one.
Stop it. Yeah. I've done it. Yeah, wow. When did you do that?
Yeah, I did it in 2009. When I was 50, I wanted to do 5 ultras, and I finished with that one. I had a friend who lives nearby, and we stayed with them, and it was I loved it. It starts at midnight, doesn't it? And you run through the night, and there's the relay. So you get the relay runners going past you. But I
was good. So now they do an ultra format. So you start earlier and you run to Lyon. And then you turn around. No, you run from Lyon to Etienne, then you turn around and start again. You start with the rest of the runners, but you've already done half of it. But I remember that, not only standing in the sports hall at midnight with 2,000 other runners, so bizarre. And then every 10, 15K relay runners start, and it's pitch black and you're in the middle of nowhere, and they come past you all fresh. Go, excuse-moi, ça va. And you're like, are you a runner? Are you a relay runner? It's a bizarre race, a unique race, but it is fun, isn't it? So that's been cancelled, understandably, because Lyon is being sadly really badly hit by the virus. Another time, it's not to be my year this year. Anyway, tell us about the wedding.
Yeah, so the wedding was amazing. Katrina's brother, Kerry, and his wife, Claire, they got married at Elon Dornan, the castle. And the Monday was just a stunning day, blue skies, no wind. So the wedding was outside in the castle grounds, and it was just amazing. So that was really fun to be part of. And so that was we were there for 3 nights, came back on Wednesday. And training wise, I did my long run last Saturday. I went from Drummond to Roedennen and back. The first hour was nice, and then it just started raining, and it just rained the rest of the day. But it was fine. I didn't put a coat on, to be honest. It wasn't that cold. I was pretty drenched by the end, but it was
you look in the video, you make it sound, it's all great. And then you do look like a drowned rat.
That's right. I know. I was.
But did you felt good? You felt strong?
I did. I just tried to run. I just tried to get an idea of what pace I can run at the moment. I must admit, I was sneakily hoping I might be near a 12-minute mile pace, but I was near a 14-minute mile, to be honest. And that's fine. That's where I'm at the moment. So
there was a lot of climbing in that.
There is. There's a fair bit of climbing. And I was taking videos, so I was stopping and putting the camera, running back. So, that takes a little bit of time. But
it's hard being an influencer, John, with all these commitments.
But the important thing was I felt comfortable, and that's what I wanted. Yeah. So at the end of the run, obviously I was tired. I'd run for 7.5 hours, but I felt comfortable. I could have done more, and that's what I wanted, really. So
exactly.
I feel as though I've given it was a good long run. And then I've got the Hardmoors 55 2 weeks tomorrow. And then I've actually booked my flights down for the South Downs Way. And Stuart Mills very kindly said he would pace me or run with me for the last 30 miles. If you know Stuart Mills, he's a top runner.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to rein him in to make sure that he doesn't hammer me too hard at the end.
He's brilliant, and he knows that area. Like that's his home ground. He'll be sprinting to the gates, and he also wears very short shorts. So if he knows he's going to be running in the middle of the night,
he'll need to be a bit warmer than wear a few more clothes. So he'll be going a bit slow.
We have a little taper now for the next 2 weeks into.
Yeah, so I just had an easier week this week, and then I'll probably have a couple of harder sessions this week. The Monday with the club, Wednesday I'll do my 10-mile run up on the Braes, and then that will be the last longer run I'll do, and then I'll give them. And then I like to run every other day, then just ticking over until the race. Yeah. But the other highlight of this week was I was a guest on Claire Maxted's Wild Ginger running. And she invited me on Wednesday, and it lasted about an hour and 15 minutes in the end, I think. But it was really good. I really enjoyed that. And it's a live interview, so people are leaving comments and asking questions. And there was lots of goodwill towards our podcast, our Run to the Hills. So people saying how much they enjoy it. So if you're watching or listening to this because of that interview, then you're very, very welcome. And we hope you stay with us and enjoy the episodes of Run to the Hills. So I will put a link on. So if people wanted to watch it, then they can. Because you know me, I'm not shy. Okay, so, and then the other thing I wanted to mention was that we're having our second live interview next Tuesday. And during the summer, I did live interviews during the lockdown. And one of them I did was with Nicky Spinks, who's a top runner in the UK, in the world. And unfortunately, about 20 minutes in, we had a real problem with the internet. She couldn't hear me, and we had to abandon it. And I asked her whether she would come back on, and she very kindly has. So on Tuesday, on our YouTube channel at 7 o'clock, it'll be a live interview with Nicky Spinks. So I'll put details on our Facebook page. And if you've got questions for Nicky Spinks, then please put them there, or you can ask them live as we go on the interview. So that will be Tuesday, 7 o'clock, with live interview with Nicky Spinks. Let's move on to our competition. Last week, we talked about crewing, and we asked people to share some of their thoughts. And again, we had a great response on our Facebook page with loads and loads of people leaving comments. And it was quite fun, actually, because there was a little bit of debate going on some of them, a little bit of not argy-bargy, but a few comments and people coming back, which is always fun to hear. And it was all done in the good spirit. So that was great. So in a moment, you're going to give us your the top one that we chose, Eddie. But I just wanted to pick out a couple of people that I liked who didn't quite make the top of the podium. And the first one was Jo Adams. And she said, my support crew were immense during the Laking 100. They couldn't give me any food, water, or help me. Outside assistance is a no-no. But having them there at the checkpoints with a hug and a kick up the arse was amazing. My partner crewed me at Equinox, and when I was tired and rambling and asking for random things, he was able to say, no, you need X, Y, Z, and would send me on my way. We set out a plan, and when I was too tired to remember what to do, he was all over it. My crew have gotten me through a lot. So I thought that was a really good one. So well done to Jo. And the other one I wanted to pick out was Chloe Brooks, because she, like a few other people, had a different opinion about crews. And she said, it looks like I'm in the minority here, but I prefer not having a crew, even for long races like Hardmoors 110. I just like to run and not have to worry so much about the logistics and know that I'm not relying on a single person being there to finish. Although absolutely everyone on ultras are so helpful, from marshals, other crew, supporters, that it does sometimes feel you have a crew anyway. And when it goes to those tougher moments, knowing you don't have a warm car to DNF into can help keep moving forwards. So that was interesting, because she, like a few other people, said that they actually prefer not to have a crew. Anyway, I think we're definitely going to have to do a whole episode on crewing, Eddie, because there's so much in there.
Chloe bit there now. Now, since I've had kids, the actual logistics, if I want my husband, who would be my number one choice to come and crew me, the actual then sorting of the childcare and everything else, I now find I prefer to go by myself and just be totally if I can't get a mate, I mean, obviously get a mate to crew, but otherwise I feel I have the confidence now that I can look after myself. And actually, I like Chloe. I like to put my head down. I don't need to worry about anybody else. I know quite a few mums that feel like that too, the actual logistics of organising everything, just getting it done. I do like having somebody at the finish though, because there's nothing like that sweaty finishing hug is there. So I get to announce the winner. I'd just like to say John Steele's comment of, we like them to have crew. If they don't have crew, I have to pick them up at the Hardmoors 110. I thought that was funny. So
I love the voice as well. Well done.
Yeah, John. It's quite teaching, isn't it? I chose for the winner as Melissa Montague, because she talked about having the smile factor for her crew factor. Her and her husband Justin, they're big ultra runners, and she talked about how he's helped her to finish some really tough adventure races. And she gave a really good example of this summer when they had all their races cancelled. They did the Devon coast to coast ultra route, which they'd raced together on before, but instead she ran the first half and he crewed for her, and then they swapped and she crewed for him the second half. And I thought that was a lovely idea. And I'm looking forward to having those two on the show, because they met ultra running and now he is a vicar, and they carry on ultra running, and they're the ultimate ultra running power couple. So I've already pre-booked them for our Valentine's podcast special. So it'll be interesting to hear how they met and their story of ultra running. So Melissa, what was surprise, John? I forgot.
This was the protein bars, this one.
The protein bars. Oh, she'll love those. Coming your way, Melissa. Make sure Justin gets a few too.
Excellent. And then at this point, we just wanted to review a race that happened last weekend and just give the results. So we'll do that now.
The Exmoor 1110, they had a 110-mile race, a 110K race, and a 55K race. And we thought we'd just highlight the 110-mile winners was Adam Mulholland. He won in 24 hours 52. That's going some Adam, well done. And the female winner was Amy Fullwood in 28 hours 07. And I think the conditions must have been pretty bad, and the ground must have been pretty wet. So that sounds like a really good race. I don't know anything about it, but you're going to post a link to the other results on the show notes as well, John.
Well, and again, it's funny, isn't it? There's so many races out there that you think, oh, I'd love to try that. I'd love to do that one. So I think your list gets longer and longer, doesn't it, of the races that you'd love to do. But again, that was good. And it was great that it went ahead. I assume it was similar to the ones that we've covered, where it's more of a time trial, people setting off at different times and making sure that it's all safe. So that was good. Okay, remember, if you've got other races that you know are coming up that you're taking part in, please share on our Facebook page, and we'll give them a shout out as well as we go along. And we are aware, obviously, that the Autumn 100 is on this weekend, and we will be featuring that in episode 10 next week. Now, we're going to move on to our interviews now, and we wanted this episode to be slightly different in the sense that we wanted to highlight mental health and the role that running has. And I interviewed two runners this week who very kindly shared their own story. The first one is David Riley, who is the director of Peakrunners. And again, I'll put a link on the show notes to that website and the races that they organize. And it was really fascinating chatting to David and just finding out a little bit about his story. And I think the thing that really amazed me about David is that he went through so much of his life without really ever telling people how he felt. And it's a very honest account of his story and what happened and where he's at. So I hope that will be a really helpful one for you. And then the second one, I spoke to Gayle Tait, who's someone I know a bit better. She's up in Scotland and we've ran together now and again. And Gayle, a couple of years ago, shared a very personal post on Facebook about the struggles that she's been through. And I wanted to chat to Gayle because she speaks very well and she's very clear, and the things that she's learned from that. So I hope that will be helpful. And just to let you know, Gayle did a lovely interview with Caroline Mackay on Mountains and Minds podcast. And I'll put a link on there so you can listen to that. It's a longer interview, and I think it's well worth listening to if you want to find out more about Gayle and some of the things that she went through. So we'll put these we'll put these interviews together. So it'll be David Riley, and that lasts just over 25 minutes. And then we've got my interview with Gayle, which is just under 23 minutes. So I hope you enjoy these. And as we mentioned at the beginning, there are some aspects of these interviews that they were very honest about their struggles and the things that they've done. And we hope it's not upsetting, but we feel it was really worthwhile sharing this with you. Right, for this week's episode of Run to the Hills, we wanted to do something about mental health and ultra running. And so we've got a couple of guests that we wanted to speak to and learn a little bit about their own personal story. And the first one we have is David Riley. So thank you very much, David, for joining us for this podcast. And maybe you could just start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, no problem, John. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm 44 years old. I live in the Peak District National Park, little village called Home Firth. So it's just on the, it's like in the heart of the Peak District. I started. I've had quite a heavy sort of background in sort of outdoors and fitness all my life. I've had a big sort of background and career in martial arts for 25 years. And then after the martial arts, I started getting into the endurance sort of side of things. So I started running seriously in 2011, where I started off in the 12 and 24-hour sort of endurance runs, and then sort of just gradually progressed from there, really.
And tell us a little bit about your job. But what's your full-time employment at the moment?
So my full-time job at the moment, I own a company called Peakrunners. So I organise trail and fell races in the Peak District National Park from the 5K up to your 30 milers. So yeah, I've been doing that for the past 5 years now. I also do some mountain guiding as well, like the guided hikes and things to do with that. So it's all to do with Peakrunners. Yeah. There's one sort of company, really, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
but yeah.
I've had a look at your website and your Facebook page, and it's really good. You've got lots of different things going on. You've got some guided walks as well. I was interested that you do a guided walk of the Welsh 3000s. So that looked interesting. So obviously this year's been quite different for you. So how has it been with the COVID-19 and what's been happening with lockdown and things being cancelled?
Yeah, so sort of business financially sort of wise, it hasn't been a very good year for sort of Peakrunners. We've had to cancel. I've cancelled, I think, 12 events this year. So, but you mean I've got one event in November which is still going ahead. Fingers crossed at the moment. So that's like my only surviving race of the year. But but I have been doing the guided walks in between, and I do a little bit of coaching and things like that. So I've been all right. I've had more time to train, so it's been good. Yeah. It's been good.
And you mentioned there about your own running. So just tell us a little bit more about what attracted you to doing the longer distance and getting out on the trails.
Yeah, so I think it all sort of stemmed from the martial arts background, because we always did like a lot of endurance sort of training and sort of road work and things like that. So I've always been a big fan of the fitness sort of longer sort of endurance sort of sports, if you know what I mean. So I think from finishing the martial arts, I felt like I had the endurance to go and do the 12 and 24-hour events rather than jumping into the 10Ks. I thought I'd rather just jump straight into the long stuff and just get it done. You know what I mean? So, but I felt like I was fit enough to do that, and I was. But I do tend to stick to the longer sort of events now. I'm getting a bit too old to keep up with the fast boys in the shorter races now.
Yes. If you look on the runs you've done so far, which would be the one that you look back on with the most pride in that you accomplished what you hoped to do and you achieved what you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, I think the ones maybe stand out the most. The Spine Challenger. I did that in, I think it was 2015. So it was a year when we had all the floods and everything like that. So that made it quite challenging. And maybe another one, the Lavradio Ultra Trail in the Dolomites. That's an 82-mile sort of mountain race. It was pretty full on. You know what I mean? I felt quite good after the Labrador. But yeah, I think those sort of races out of all the ones I've sort of done really is the ones one maybe stand out the most to me, where I've sort of felt sort of comfortable and managed to complete the races and things like that. And then you know what I mean, and also just sort of big training runs. I think sometimes the training runs are just as good as races. If you're doing 30-50 mile training runs, can just be as tough can they as races.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Excellent. And then just tell us a little bit, David, about Peakrunners, and what was your motivation to get that going? And has it grown in the way that you hoped it to, or is it still in its early stages?
No. So yeah. So it's been going now steadily now for about 5 years now. So you know what I mean, when I first started doing the Peakrunners, I was a fishmonger. I was a fishmonger for 20 years. So you know what I mean, but because I enjoyed the running, you know what I mean, I wanted to sort of create some races where other people can enjoy the outdoors and the trails like me. You know what I mean, it did eventually get to a point where the running side of things was taken off, so I had to choose either obviously the fish or the running. So I went to the running. So you know what I mean, I think sometimes you just have to take a risk, and you know what I mean, it is working out. Each year I've been getting more and more sort of people taking part and a returning sort of runners coming. So yeah, you know what I mean, it is sort of growing. And you know what I mean, I think the big part of it for me to sort of grow Peakrunners was obviously because of the mental health. I had something to sort of focus my mind on. You know what I mean, to get my teeth stuck into something and just keep my mind active rather than let it float away into that crazy world, if you know what I mean. But yeah.
Obviously that leads in quite well, because we want to obviously talk on this episode about mental health and about some of the issues that runners face. And so can you just share a little bit about your own situation and how that has affected you?
Yeah. So you know what I mean, when I've sort of thought back, you know what I mean, when we've sort of gone through things and I've thought back, you know what I mean, it did really start from a younger age. So you know what I mean, from a younger age, I've been really sort of scared and frightened of people and big sort of busy places. So I've always suffered with social anxiety and things like that from a child. You know what I mean, I'm not one for sort of crying the poor tale, but you know what I mean, but again, things like being bullied and things like that at school doesn't sort of help if you're sort of going through them sort of issues and things like that. And then eventually, further on down my life, when I got older, you know what I mean, I could feel things sort of getting worse. I'd probably say the main reason for getting into the martial arts was probably because of the bullying. So I got stuck into the martial arts. I started training and I was competing. There was certain years in my life where I got addicted to sort of growth hormones and things like that. You know what I mean, because I was training so much and I was sort of seeing results. It sort of starts giving you the confidence and can get quite a bit addictive if you've sort of been bullied in the past. And you know what I mean. So yeah, I've gone through all that. Then eventually, about 3 years ago, it sort of all came to a halt. I was sort of driving home one day. I didn't really feel sort of safe in my own sort of company. So you know what I mean, and that's when I sort of got help. So and then you know what I mean, it has sort of eventually started working out better from there onwards.
Yeah. So would you say that point 3 years ago, was that the lowest you got to in the sense of struggling with this?
It is, yeah. I mean, I'll say 3 years ago. You know what I mean, I could sort of tell my mind was sort of off the rails. You know what I mean, I felt like I was going sort of crazy. You know what I mean, you start having elusive thoughts and things like that. You know what I mean, but before that, you know what I mean, I was I could walk to the place of where I used to work, the fish place. You know what I mean, I used to walk to work every morning, and obviously the first thing I thought about when I woke up and walking to work was just sort of how can you sort of end your life. You know what I mean, I was sort of doing that every sort of day. If you know, I was just waking up with the same thoughts. But you know what I mean, it just sort of came the normal sort of thing for me to do, and I think I just sort of got used to it and ended up sort of living with it, really. You know what I mean, but I didn't really speak to anybody, which obviously doesn't help. But but yeah, I think the time when I got the help, I was sort of I think that rate of, I don't think if I hadn't got the help, I probably wouldn't be obviously speaking to you today. I think you can tell when your sort of mind's going to explode, and that's it really. But yeah.
So David, are you saying from school up until 3 years ago, you didn't really talk to anyone about how you felt?
No.
Wow.
No one at all. So it used to mean, it used to mean when I think back, it used to mean I did suffer, like I said, a lot with like busy places and crowds and things like that. And then obviously the bullying started. I was afraid to go out and things. I used to even sort of beat myself up. So that used to mean I thought if I beat myself up and the bullies saw me, and it to mean if they sort of saw I'd already got in a beat, and they'd leave me alone, if you know what I mean. So it got to a point I was sort of obviously hurting myself to save the bullying.
Wow.
But yeah. And then obviously I got into the martial arts when I was older, but obviously the bullying carried on to was sort of 20, 22, 23 maybe. So obviously I was a grown man still when I was being bullied and things. But obviously the martial arts helped that. And but yeah.
And I assume that bullying is not just physical; it was, mental as well. It was, comments that were made and this sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I'd probably say it was I'd probably say we're more physical, really. Yeah, I'd probably say. I think these days it can be more sort of mentally, can't it, because of the social media and things. But back when I was younger, we didn't have any of the phones or anything like that, so it was probably more physical. You know what I mean?
So that point 3 years ago, then, when you felt you got to your lowest, did you feel you needed help then? Was a bit of a crisis, was it, for you?
It was, yeah. I could sort of tell building up to the day where I rang my therapist and things like that. You know what I mean? That particular drive home, you know what I mean, just sticks in my head. I just felt like smashing my van off the side of the road. You know what I mean? But I stopped and spoke to my therapist, and obviously from there, it did help me. But yeah. You know what I mean? But even the course going through, seeing the sessions and things like that. You know what I mean? He did say to me, things will get worse before they get better, and they did. You know what I mean? You start getting flashbacks of your childhood and things like that, and I still had all the elusive thoughts and things. But yeah, you know what I mean? Things did get worse, but obviously they get better.
Well, I think a big thing today, obviously mental health is something which is talked about a lot. And I think during lockdown as well, I think a number of people have been concerned for people's mental health. And one of the big things that always comes across is making sure you talk to somebody.
It is, yeah, of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting just talking to you there, David, that for all those years, you didn't feel you could speak to anyone. So have you got any advice for someone maybe who as maybe thinking the same things and struggling with things and has not spoken to somebody?
Yeah, you to mean I think I think if you just speak to a close friend, or you to mean if you just you to mean you do just need to obviously speak to somebody if you feel like it's going a bit too far. You need to get help. You to mean so the therapy side, it was a psychotherapy side. So you to mean I'm not sort of keen on the counsellors who'll just sort of sit back and just chat to you and try to make you feel better. I think you really need to see somebody who can really get into your head, if you know what I mean, to solve the problems. You know what I mean? But if people are struggling, yeah, speak to your friends, speak to your family. But I think, you know what I mean, I think I didn't really speak to somebody because I was sort of doing all the martial arts and the fighting. You know what I mean? You think you're sort of a bit of a tough guy, don't you? You think something like that can't sort of happen to you, don't you? If you know what I mean. And I think all my friends were quite surprised when I sort of told them. I think I was the last person that expected to be suffering with depression and things like that. But yeah, these things happen, don't they? But yeah, you just need to speak to people and get help.
So obviously, I'm sort of quite keen to sort of see how running has helped you, because obviously it's your passion now, both as a hobby, but also as your job and helping other people to really appreciate it. So can you tell us a little bit about how you feel running has made a difference to your mental health?
Yeah. So you know what I mean. So as a running, because obviously I'm not really a road fan, so I always sort of hit the trails and the fells. You know what I mean. I think when you're out there, you just feel free. There's no sort of worries on the top of the mountains or in the hills of everything. You know what I mean. You can just sort of just relax and just run and just enjoy the nature. And but yeah, I have back in the days, I did used to sort of plan to go running, and my wife used to thought I did there for hours just sort of crying and things like that. But now it just sort of helped me to get out there, and you just sort of feel free, don't you? And you can connect with the nature and things like that.
In your experience of running, and particularly with your business and speaking to people, have there been other people that you've been able to help, do you think, who have been in similar situations to where you were?
Yes. So since starting Peakrunners, I've sort of connected with people who've sort of connected with me and asked for my help and advice and things like that. I've made new running friends through people sharing the feelings with me and things like that. So I think I've helped sort of people in the same circumstances. I just sort of use my social media as like a bit of a feed to sort of get my feelings out there, which isn't for everybody, but it sort of helped me, if you know what I mean. And I think that's how people sort of connected with me. But I think people like the Peakrunners things. Well, it is like a little family sort of run business, and people sort of like that connection, if you know what I mean, as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the. I think since we've started Run to the Hills, it's been interesting that I think we're aware that there's very groups that are really strong. So there's the Hardmoors family, there's the Lakeland family, there's Centurion, there's the West Highland Way, there's yours. And I think it does provide a real not just a physical outlet, but also that friendship and support. And I think things like Park Run, the fact that that's not been able to run, that's been a big issue for a lot of people who get their mental health from that, volunteering or running every week. So another thing I was interested, David, just that your sort of mindset and say mental toughness. You talked about your martial arts, so I imagine you're physically tough. But you feel as though you've put in place some strategies to help you with your mindset.
Yeah. So I do feel at the moment, I won't say it's you do sort of get blips every now and again, but I'd say my mindset's fairly strong now. I think even since the lockdown, I've gone even stronger. It hasn't really affected me sort of mentally. It's made me sort of mentally stronger, really. But I think for me, the key for me, it isn't for everybody, but for me, I just need to sort of train and do what I do every day, if you know what I mean. So, it's just what I enjoy doing. It keeps my mind sort of strong. And I need to do something daily to be able to sort of survive the mind, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think a lot of people listening to this who run would say that, getting out for an hour run or a 2-hour run or whatever length they go just helps them to be better people, to be able to sort of, to clear the mind. I know lots of people love listening to music, other people podcasts maybe, but lots of us like to go with nothing so we can have time to think and just to enjoy what's there. If you need to exercise every day then to help you with your mental health, what happens if you have an injury? If you're not able to physically exercise, is that a worry for you, or is that something that you have to deal with?
No. Yeah, I suppose I'm quite lucky at the moment. I don't really sort of pick up really any major sort of injuries. But but if I pick up an eagle, there's always something you can do. If you know what I mean, sort of physically, you can always do something. So. I do sort of run every day. I stretch every day as well. I probably stretch about an hour and a half every day. I do my kickboxing still 3 or 4 times a week, and then I still do the conditioning every day as well. But that's just me. I'm not saying everyone needs to do that. That's just how it helps me, if you know what I mean. But
have you found that your physical shape has changed much, from doing the martial arts, which I always think is very explosive and very power, whereas obviously the 24-hour longer races, it's more about endurance. So has your body shape changed much over the years as you've switched from one to the other?
So I think I've dropped about sort of 4 stone in weight since I've sort of stopped doing the competing and the martial arts, because obviously I was heavy into the weights and things like that as well when I was sort of doing the competing and things. But no, I think I feel fitter now. I'm 40. You to me, I'm 44. I feel fitter now than was when I was in my 20s. And but to me, I think a lot of it's obviously the mindset, isn't it, as well. You know what I mean? And I think going through things like that can sort of help you on the longer sort of ultras and the longer distances. You can sort of get your head down and just get on with things, can't you? And then if your mind just sort of start kicking in and playing silly beggars with you.
I'm sure, like me, David, you're aware that over the last few years, there's been I'm aware of 2 or 3 ultra runners that have taken their own lives. It's obviously not the only answer, is it? You know, if you run, then obviously you're going to be fine, because, as I said, we've had some close friends who have taken their own lives, So have you got any sort of advice to people listening to this who are maybe struggling with their own mental health?
Yeah, I have got friends now who are sort of struggling and things like that. I do speak to them. But I think the key thing is you need to obviously get help and speak to a professional, don't you? You need somebody to. I think it's hard to. I don't think you can sort of do it by yourself. I think you need to get the right sort of help. And there's plenty of help out there, if you know what I mean. But I'm the same. I still have days I go out there and you still get the elusive sort of thoughts and things like that. But you do sort of have the tools to sort of cope with it and manage them, if you know what I mean. I think you'll probably be there it'll just keep on popping up all the way through my life now. But hopefully I'll have the tools and the mindset to sort of deal with it, if you know what I mean.
I think, as you were saying, I think getting some professional help will help you to have those tools, isn't it? I think if you just if you try and work it out on your own, it's a bit hit and miss, isn't it? Yeah. Whereas if you get some help, and it might be that all it needs is a little bit of help to give you some tools to identify things. Other times it might be more than that, mightn't it? It might take longer.
That's right. Yeah. And then obviously if you're sort of seeing your therapist, obviously you become quite close friends and things like that. And then if you do have any sort of bad sort of days, you can always get back in contact with them. It's just like a phone call away, isn't it? You can always pick up the phone and speak to them again, can't you? And I'll go and see them again, if you know what I mean. But I think that's, like you said, that's the key thing, to get proper professional help, really, rather than to try and cope with it by yourself. So I don't think you can do.
Yeah. That's really helpful, David. And I'm sure people listening to this, we would encourage them to get that help if they feel they've had those thoughts and they're struggling with mental health issues, to get that help that is out there. Thank you so much for that. It's been really good. I'd like to finish on a couple of other things. Have you got any plans for your own running for this year or for next year? Anything on your bucket list that you would love to do that you haven't done yet?
Yeah. I've got a few. I've got a few challenges. So at the moment, I'm coached by Damien Hall. So he's been coaching me for the past sort of 3 years. There's a few sort of challenges in the horizon. Well, we're just sort of keeping a bit quiet at the moment. But I'm just sort of enjoying getting out and just training, really. And then obviously next year, hopefully things might be a little bit easier and we can start doing more races and things like that. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Excellent. We'll look out for those. Yeah. And just to finish with, David, I'd like to do our quick fire questions. These are lightning questions. Right. So there's just some different alternatives as we go through them. So your favourites, really, road or trail?
Trail.
Trail. Sun or rain?
Sun.
Right. Yeah. And hot. Yeah. Hot or cold?
A bit of both, really. Yeah. Both. I'll say hot.
Okay.
I'll say hot.
Okay.
I'll quite like the sun.
Have you got a favourite thing to listen to when running? Do you like listen to music or podcasts or nothing?
I don't really listen to anything now. It goes sort of back. It goes back to the sort of the mental health. I think sometimes if you listen to things, it can sort of hide things in your head. So I don't sort of listen to anything. I just sort of just run with nothing, really. You know what I mean? Just listen to the nature.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So how many pairs of trainers do you own?
All right. Okay. I'll probably say Probably won't be too bad compared to some, about 20, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. And what's the longest you've ever gone without washing your kit?
I'm probably straight away, because I'm a bit OCD about that sort of thing. I'm a bit of a clean freak, so I'm normally straight in the washing machine.
Okay, so very little, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the strangest thing you've seen on a run?
Probably hallucinating. Probably after the Lab Radio Ultra Trail, everyone at the finish line had the big sort of comedy heads with big curly hair and things like that. So yeah, things like that really. But,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, and the final question we've got is, what's your favourite distance to race? What would be your favourite distance?
Yeah, I'd say 50 miles.
Okay.
50 miles. I feel like I could probably compete more with 50 rather than the 100. Yeah, so I'd say 50. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for this interview. It's been really good just to chat to you, and
Yeah,
thanks for being
John.
thanks for being so honest with us. And in a future episode, we'd love to find out and follow one of your races. One of the things that we do on Run to the Hills is do a review of a race that's just happened. So hopefully next year, when you get your races back up and running, maybe one of the longer ones, because we like to do the ultras, and we could maybe follow one of your races and get some of the people who've done them onto the show.
Yeah,
and we can find
that's
out
perfect,
more.
is that, John?
Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, John. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, John. Thank you.
Okay, the second person that we've got for our podcast this week is Gayle Tait. And I was keen to speak to Gayle and just to chat to her a little bit about some of the issues that she's faced, because Gayle, you've been someone that's been very honest and open about the things that you've faced and the things that you've been involved in. But before we get onto that, let's get to know you a little bit. So maybe you could just introduce yourself to us, please.
Yeah, well, I'm Gayle Tait. I am 45 years old and I live in a little place just a couple of miles outside the town of Lanark in South Lanarkshire. And I am a mum to two kids, 12 and 8. And yeah, I'm a runner.
Yeah, guys. Well, obviously this podcast is about running. So let's find a little bit about your running. So what attracted you to running in the first place, and maybe ultras in particular?
Yeah, I started running about 17 years ago. And initially, so that was in my 20s. Initially, I hadn't been very well in my kind of mid-20s and I needed to lose a bit of weight. So essentially it kind of progressed from having gone to the gym and doing a bit of treadmill stuff in the gym. And then I started running outside and I just started to really enjoy it. And I seen the appropriate changes to my body that I was wanting in terms of weight loss and stuff. And then from there, once the weight loss all happened, I realised I actually really loved running. And I started doing some races and I progressed from there. And I was mainly a road runner for a long number of years. 10Ks, half marathons, road marathons. And then when my daughter was born in 2008, I did the London Marathon the year after she was born. She was actually only about 12, 13 months at the time. And it was a bit of a mistake because I just wasn't ready for it, to be honest. So didn't run the time I wanted to run. And I just had it with road running at that point. So that led me into a bit of hill running and longer stuff on trails. And I kind of wish I'd discovered it sooner, to be perfectly honest. And then through having done some hill runs and some longer off-road stuff, I discovered ultra running and did my first ultra in 2013, the Devil of the Highlands race. And that was it. It's really like most people, hooked ever since.
Yeah. Well, it is funny, isn't it? I think I've got some friends who've just done one and that's it, and they go back to road. But I'd like to think the majority of us, once we've found the trails and the ultras, then we don't look back, do we? Yeah,
absolutely. You get a taste for it and you're hooked. That's it.
That's right. Now, I know we could chat lots about different races you've done, but maybe just to give us a little feel, have you got a race that you would say would be your favorite one, or one that you look back on with the most pride of finishing or completing?
Yeah, probably the West Highland Way race in 2014, the one and only time I've actually did the race. 2014, my son was only 2 at the time, and my daughter was 6. And the reason I'm proud of it really is because I don't think I really appreciated at the time just what I had kind of overcome to actually get to the starting line of the race. My little boy, he's adorable, but just did not sleep as a child, as a baby and as a toddler at all. He was up every single night in life, despite all my best efforts. So really dealing with two young kids that age and one who didn't sleep, I had continual disturbed night's sleep, and I'm trying to train for a 95-mile race. So it just wasn't ideal at all. So actually getting to the start line and finishing that race, as I say, I don't think we really appreciate what we've accomplished sometimes until later, when you kind of look back and analyse it. And that's definitely how I feel about the West Highland Way race. I don't think my time was what I'm actually capable of, but I'm still really, really proud of the finish with, you know, two young kids in tow and one in the buggy who's crying at the end and all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm really proud of that, and I'll never forget it. So.
Yeah. Do we have tears at the end there, Gayle?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's been tears at the end of quite a lot of races, to be honest, but for different reasons. But it was definite, and it was my first race of anything like that distance, or being in my feet for anything like that time. I had only previously did the Devil as my first ultra, and then the Highland Fling, which hadn't really gone very well, and then straight into the West Highland Race. It was only my third ultra. So to finish it with, you know, kids that age was, yeah, I'm proud of it. So yeah, I'll go back to it one day though.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm sure we could talk more about some different races you've done. But this episode obviously is about mental health and ultra running in particular. And as I said in the intro, I've really appreciated some of the things that you've shared on Facebook and with people. And I know that's been a great help to others as well. So maybe you could just tell us just a little bit about how that's come about and some of the issues that you feel you've faced.
Yeah, so I think, like a lot of people, I was fairly closed about the struggles that I had with my mental health, and most people perceived me to be a sort of happy person, and not just through Facebook, because I'm generally quite sociable. So when you meet me, and I'm generally quite upbeat and chatty, and laughing and smiley, and I know that's how people perceive me. So nobody really knew and that's often the case with mental health. Nobody really knows what's going on in the background under the surface, as it were. So and then I'd had a few really, really tough years, and then 2 years ago things reached, you know, crisis point. I'd had other crisis points before, but nothing like this, and I tried to take my own life 2 years ago. So things pretty much came crashing down at that point, and as a result of that, when I got out of hospital, and it was just around the time of World Mental Health Day in 2018, and I kind of thought, you know, I thought I'm sick of this. I'm sick of hiding and people not knowing like who I really am and the struggles I've had, and obviously there was a lot of publicity stuff appearing on Instagram, Facebook, social media, about people sharing their struggles, and I thought it's really now or never. It's either say something. I did it in quite a big and public way, put a post on Facebook to say, with actually photos of myself from the hospital that had been taken in the very best of intentions to try and show me afterwards, this is how you were and this is how you looked when you were in your worst times. And they served me well. It sounds like a horrible thing to do, but they served me well, having seen the potential damage that I had done to myself. And so, yeah, I put a post on Facebook saying World Mental Health Day, here I am. This is photos of what it looks like when you, try to end things. And, nobody knows this about me. And, here it is, kind of laid myself bare. And, I put it on and instantly thought, I've made the wrong decision here. But the thing that made the difference is I got a private message from a friend very shortly after I put the post up. She's actually a clinical psychologist, and she messaged me and said, don't take the post down. I know you'll be sitting thinking, I'm going to take the post down. She said, don't take the post down, don't delete it, leave it. It's exceptionally brave, and you will help people from it. And that was it really. Suddenly the feedback and the private messages, even people who maybe felt they couldn't comment publicly on the post, I had loads of private messages about it, and very, very supportive, and people saying I would never have known that was the case. And I think that was the important part from it, is that people don't often see what people go through, obviously, because we put all the best things out on social media, we put all the positive stuff out, oh, we did a great run, and nobody really knows sometimes the struggles that people are having. And sometimes I think if people see that someone else is having that struggle, it maybe makes them a little bit more able to feel that they can share their own story. And I think that from feedback I've had, that certainly was the case. So from a difficult thing, hopefully there's been some positivity.
Yeah, I say, I remember when I read that post, that was exactly my thought. You know, I just never, I've met you a few times. We've ran together now and again, and you always come across as very friendly. You got lots to chat about, and I would never have thought that. And that's part of the problem, is, in a sense, isn't it? Because we don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
So did the reaction from that post, what was it, pretty positive, or did you have other things that, you know, that would cause more problems, in a sense?
Yeah, no, I think it was, at the time, it was overwhelmingly positive. There's been a few negative things from it since, minor, just in terms of, I think there's a thing just now that some people get accusations levelled against them about almost weaponising mental health, and I think it's a very dangerous accusation, and I felt that from just a couple, very, very minor, from a couple of people, but the way I tend to approach that is I think possibly that's people that are having their own struggles, and you don't know, again, what's going on in anybody else's life, so I tend not to get too upset about that kind of thing, because I know that overwhelmingly it's been positive, and I mean, the thing at the time was, obviously you're friends on Facebook with people that you don't always see and you don't see regularly. I got messages from people that I hadn't really been in contact for quite some time, people who actually opened up to me about their own problems, things that had been going on with them with their mental health, and they felt that they suddenly had somebody to talk to, and I thought that was great, because they might not have felt able to speak to anyone else about it. So yeah, on the whole, positivity, but I think there'll always be, especially in our social media age, there's always a thing of, accusations of, oh, you're using it to increase your profile or something like that. Why anybody would want to do that, I don't know, using their mental health, I don't get that, but fair enough if that's what some people want to think, then but I think the majority of people, that's probably not the case. So no, that's I tend to stick with the positivity of it. So
yeah, that's good to hear, because I think one of the issues is that people are scared about opening up, aren't they? And for years, absolutely, as you're saying, you didn't talk, but I think it's great to hear that once you have shared that, it's the amount of people that supported. So as you look back, Gayle, that was 2 years ago. Would you say that was the start of your recovery, and how are you feeling now?
I wouldn't say that was. I think it did help me. I don't think it was the start of a recovery, because I had been through quite a long process of psychology, and I'd had quite a lot of input from NHS psychologists, and I'd went through a process called EMDR, which is a type of psychotherapy, and actually that was one of the issues of what led me to that point in 2018, was I had convinced myself that actually I was cured of all, because I'd had psychotherapy and I'd had all this treatment and I was cured of any issues I had, and as a result I spent a good number of months really not focusing on the kind of going forward positively with my mental health, and then I went into a decline. But it certainly is a crux point in my life, and that having shared it, I didn't want to go back to that. I wanted to keep moving forward positively, and I still struggle, and I think anybody that has struggled with mental health, there isn't a a massive cure. It's something that you've always got to kind of work on yourself, and work quite hard at sometimes. So I still obviously have difficult times, but I'm glad to say that on the whole I've not gone back to the way I was and the way I felt at that particular time, which was, you know, particularly bad. So yeah, hopefully with the work that I kind of continue to do, then that'll continue. I certainly don't ever want to go back to that place, and I work very hard not to. So
yeah, of course. And do you feel people treat you differently now, or more supportive, or how does that work out?
I don't know if it's treat you differently. I think it's nice that people know who you really are, and the things that you've had to deal with. So yeah, I don't think really I get treated any differently. I think I'm still essentially the same person in terms of being chatty and sociable, even though I will say that I do struggle with that at times, the sort of social aspects, and anybody that suffers from depression and anxiety and different things will at times struggle with the socialising aspect in their life. But on the whole, that's who I am as a person. So yeah, I think people know that, but know that you can be like that but still have struggles. And it's quite a grounding thing, I guess, for a lot of people, is to know that the person that looks the happiest, it's not always the case. So sometimes look beyond what you actually see on social media.
Yeah. Again, Gayle, I'm conscious that it's easy to think, you know, if you get into running, ultra running in particular, long distances, it's the answer to everything. But I realise it's not, is it? And in a sense that you've been through this as you were running. It's not as if you started running and that's helped you. But would you say running has helped at all, or what role does it play within the whole thing? Yeah,
so I absolutely use running to bolster good mental health. Now, there's no doubt about that, but you're absolutely right in that it's not a miracle cure for depression, and I think it's important that we know that it definitely helps. And for me, it provides an escape, a sense of physical accomplishment, actually at times kind of like a form of meditation, I guess, where you can just switch your mind off, or you can use it quite often, as I do, to process things in your mind as you're running. But there's a flip side of it that we've got to be very careful about, and the flip side of it is that it's very, very easy to use running in the wrong way, and that was something I had to go through quite a lot of with the psychologist that I worked with. She felt that I was almost using running as too much of an escape, and was too almost seeking out pain in some way. She's right in a way, in that there was times I can recall certain runs where I couldn't stop. I couldn't, despite being in pain. So I was actually suffering from an injury on one particular run, I recall, and I remember speaking to the psychologist about it a few days after it, and she was pretty horrified, because about 12 miles into a 22-mile run, I could hardly lift one leg up, and I kept going to 22 miles. Now that's not healthy. That's not a healthy approach, is to feel like you need to go out and absolutely destroy yourself. So clearly for me, there was something going on there, that I was using it in a way that actually became unhealthy. And that's only something I think I've really got to grips with over the last couple of years, is that it can be a force for good and a really positive thing for your mental health, but you cannot use it almost to seek out pain in some way, to as if that's, I don't know how I would interpret it, but it's almost like, is the physical pain somehow you're looking at that to take away your mental pain? Because that's what really bad depression is. It's like a mental anguish, it's pain. And so yeah, I think that we've got to be careful about saying, as you say, it's not a cure, because I was running all through the times when my mood's been low, but if you can find the balance, and for me, I think I've found that balance just now. I've got a slightly different attitude and feel about it. I love it. I absolutely love it, and it definitely helps me keep my mind healthy. So Yeah, but as I say, you've got to be careful of the flip side.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Gayle. That's really helpful. I'm sure people listening, it's going to really help them as well. Just to finish with, have you got any advice? I'm very aware that we're not professionals, and I don't want to, tread on things which we shouldn't do. But would you say generally any advice for someone who's listening to this who maybe were like you before you shared and were further back in the journey that you could help them with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something I obviously let me listen to David's interview, and I think it's something that David touched on as well, is the really the need to talk to someone, and that could be, as I think he said, was it could be a friend. Initially, it doesn't need to be someone professional. And listen, the whole thing is, if you're suffering from really bad depression, the last thing you want to do is speak to someone. You will almost go into, or a lot of people will go into a withdrawal process. And for me, that's what I always did, was shut down, absolute shutdown. But that's where the big problems came in 2 years ago, because I did shut down. So even if it's a friend, it doesn't have to be a big confession of everything. It's, I'm not feeling great, and these are the things that are going on in my mind. And actually where that can lead you is to positive places where, potentially going on to professional help. Because, sometimes a friend will say, maybe you should speak to someone about it. And that, the other side of it is, that's what I would say, it's not just about telling someone who's struggling with their mental health, or you need to talk to someone. It's about the rest of us who maybe, if someone comes to you and reveals that, it's really, really important that we listen. And actually listening is the thing that anyone can do. Ask someone if you think maybe if it's a friend, if their behaviour's changed a bit, if they've become more withdrawn, just ask them if they're okay. Reassure them, you can talk to me if you're struggling. And the major thing that we have to have is empathy and compassion. And it can be really, really hard work if someone with really hard depression is speaking to you a lot about it. Because I've been on the other side with someone speaking to me about it. But we need to be really careful about making someone feel that they're a burden or that they're hard work, because actually the difference that you could make to actually saving somebody's life, just by empathy and compassion and how can I support you, what can I do. And sometimes you can't do anything except speak to them and listen to them, and that's sometimes all it takes.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah, thank you so much. And if we just help one person from this podcast, then that's great, isn't it? And I really appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. No, thank you so much for this tonight, and just for sharing with us. I think there's some real good insights there, and thanks for being so honest and open about that. And maybe just to finish with, let's just finish on a running question. I've been asking everyone, or most people that we interview, what is their favourite distance to race? So have you got a favourite distance that you like to toe the line on?
I don't think it's a distance. I think because I've ran various distances, but depending on the technical nature of the terrain, I've been out for way more hours than what you might expect for that actual distance. So for me, I really like the thing of being out 2 nights. So I did the Oman by UTMB last year, and I had 2 full nights of darkness. And there's something about that, being out 2 nights and the challenge of that. So, but that could be a race that's 70 miles or 100 miles or, whatever, something like UTMB. So yeah, it's not so much a distance as I want to be out in the darkness more.
Yeah. So all those sleepless nights with your son then have paying off, are they?
They paid off. He sleeps like a log now. He's 8 now. He's sleeping really well now. So yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Gayle, and I look forward to having a run together sometime soon and seeing you on the trails.
I hope so, John. Thanks very much.
Well, again, I'd like to really thank David and Gayle for sharing their stories with us. I think, as you've heard, it was not easy for them in lots of ways, but I think what they shared and shared with us hopefully will really help others. And I know, Eddie, as well, that you've written a lovely blog post for Cheer Charge blogs, sort of picking up on some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the interviews, but firstly, John, they were really great interviews. So you asked some really good questions there, and I said I'd write the blog, and I felt a bit of a fraud writing the blog because I didn't want to write something that wasn't right in some ways. And then I read something quite interesting, and it said actually we all have mental health. It's not just a case of, you know, if you don't have certified depression that you don't have mental health. Actually, we all do have mental health, and it once I sort of started thinking about that, I was like, yeah, we do. And it is important that that we do all think about our mental health. And it's not just something in your head. It's actually thinking of it more like a muscle, just like us when we go running and we want to exercise our legs. Our mental health, it's quite important to check in with, especially at the moment in this year, with how we're feeling. David talks a lot about, in his interview, about being. You asked him, like, do you listen to music and podcasts? And he's like, actually, I like to just be and listen to the nature. And I think as runners, we can be quite bad at actually blocking that out, because you see loads of people with like headphones on and music and stuff. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm really passionate about with my kids as well, is teaching them just to be. I don't let my kids have screens very much, and we don't have iPads and games here. It's very easy for me because we live in the mountains and we live somewhere where they can just go outside and play and be feral. But to me, it's really important to teach them to be bored. And as well, for me, I find it quite hard, I don't know about you, but to stop and just be during a day and actually listen to my thoughts. And I've made a real effort in the past few months to go out running and not to listen to music and not to listen to podcasts, apart from this one, obviously, just to let my mind just sort of tick over and just to see how I feel, because it's so hard these days to actually be by yourself and to not have something else filtering in, the radio, the social media, etc. So I thought what David said was really important then, and so I sort of picked up on that on the blog, and what Gayle said about getting the balance right between using running as a tool to exercise our mental health muscle and to use it as a time to think. And it's so important to everybody listening to this. Running is something that keeps us not only our body healthy, but our mind healthy as well. We all know that feeling when we come back from a run that we've always, 99.9% feel a million times better than before when we go for a run, and all our partners will have said to us, just go for a run if we're driving them mad. But she talks very wisely about getting the balance right, and how she's learnt, and talking to somebody has given her the tools to get that balance right between running as exercising that mental health, but not as a punishment. And that's really hard as ultra runners, because our sport is all about who can punish themselves the most, isn't it? Who can take the most pain? And I know I've been guilty of that. I ran with a stress fracture last year in my foot, and I thought I'd be able to just carry on because I can just take the pain because I'm an ultra runner. Of course, I pushed myself too hard. And in some ways, that was me damaging my mental health because I wasn't listening to myself and I was just carrying on. And so I thought that was really important, a really, really wise words as well, to get the balance, to know that if we can't run for some reason, and you asked David that, didn't you? You said, what happens if you're injured and you can't run? And he was like, well, I'm okay because, I've got these tools that I use and I can do other things. And as runners, that's really important. And maybe to think about as you're running and maybe listening to this is, if I can't run, what else can I do? Am I in touch with my mental health to sort of help me get that perspective and get that same feeling? And finally, they both said, which is what we're going to highlight this week, isn't it, on our Facebook page, instead of a competition, is talking to somebody. And Gayle said it doesn't need to be a major confession. And I thought, wow, that might just be the thing to say to somebody, is all you need to say is, I just feel a bit low. I just don't feel right. I remember when I had my first two kids really close together. So I had a toddler who is 17 months and a baby. And I definitely, the hormone, it was huge. And I remember saying to my husband, I just don't feel right. I just don't feel like myself. And as soon as I said it to him, and he was like, okay. And I shared it. He was then able to go, right, what can we do? Let's get you outside. Let's get you some help. Let's, get some friends around. And I felt so much better the moment I'd shared that. And I think what she said then is such a fantastic piece of advice, is you don't need to say to somebody all of this stuff that's going on in your head. You just need to make that first contact of, I just don't feel right. And I think if anyone's feeling like that, just that first, and that can be the end of the discussion, but it's just the starting point, isn't it? Yeah. So at the end of the blog, I've put on a number of numbers that you can call or you can share, or if you feel like that, or somebody that feels like that, and you need to talk. And I think that was the biggest thing that came out of both those interviews, was as soon as they both started talking and they seek some help, they're both now on the road to recovery. And I think it's always going to be a road to recovery, isn't it? Dealing with your mental health.
Yeah, I think as well. I think the thing that came across to me, Eddie, was realizing that running is not the only answer.
Yeah.
I think naively, I was in some ways thinking, they have problems, then you start running, then everything's sorted. But it's not like that, is it? And I think obviously running is a great tool, and I think most people listening to this would say that their mental health is improved by running, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not the answer to everything. And so, as you mentioned, we thought this week we wouldn't have a competition with a prize because it didn't feel right to reward someone. But what we'd love to do is just give the platform for people to be able to share. It doesn't have to be massive things, but if you've got a tip or you've got something that you would like to share about about your own mental health, some of the things that have helped you, then please share with us on that. Obviously, we just wanted to give that platform for people to do that. And it might be that you want just to highlight someone who helps you. Maybe you have a good friend who you go running with regularly, and just that running together just gives you a boost in your mental health, and you just want to thank them. And it might be a nice place to be able to do that, just to acknowledge and to thank someone for the support that you give them. Anyway, we'll leave that up to you, and Eddie will put a post on with those phone numbers, and also just an opportunity for people to share with us. Okay, so let's conclude now as we come to the end of this episode. You got anything on this weekend? Anything that you're planning in that sunshine in France?
Oh, and well, sadly, today is the only day of sunshine. We're back in the rain this weekend, but I haven't done my long run this week yet. So I'm looking forward to going out for 3 to 4 hours of a wet, soggy, miserable, can't even get to my race, what's the point run. But of course, I will enjoy it once it's done. And so that's what's going to happen this weekend. We will have the fire lit, no doubt. So all I'll be thinking of that long run is getting back to the fire and warming up again. But it's getting exciting because in a month we'll be this week I sorted out all the skis and got the ski boots out, and then listeners will get so bored of me. Well, I'll probably be recording in my hat and goggles going, quick John, the lifts are open, I need to go. So yeah. What about you?
Again, I think we've had a busy few weeks, so we're just going to have an easier weekend this weekend. And I'm going to plan sort of 2 more sessions before the Hardmost 55, 2 harder ones. So I'll do the Monday night session, and then next Wednesday morning, I'll go for my 10.5 mile run around the Braes, and then I'll sort of start to taper down before the Hardmost 55.
I just want to say before we go, good luck to all the Autumn 100 runners going out there. We're looking forward to interviewing next week the male and female winners. And top tip from me, I did the race last year, is the last leg, when you see the sign that says welcome to Reading, it's a lie. You're not in Reading. You've still got about 8 more miles to run to the checkpoint.
Is that the one you got lost? Is that where you got lost?
That is when I got lost. I ended up in Reading. I didn't have a head torch. I was using my phone because both my head torches died, and you're not allowed any crew or assistance. And so I was using my phone to light the path ahead of me, but those iPhone torches are hilarious. But it's such a great course. I love it. Send all my love to everybody at Centurion, and keep eating, keep running, and we can't wait to hear all about it next week.
Yeah, I'll be following particularly Giacomo and Sonny, who we interviewed a few episodes ago, who are doing the Grand Slam. So this is their 3rd race in. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. Okay, so this is the end of episode 9. So I'm John Kynaston.
I'm Eddie Sutton, and let's run to the hills.